that pivot from management to leadership for many of us over our career at different points has been about really listening, looking at data, having some strategies that people are being forthright about, and we're picking up and making sense of. So one of the things for our listeners who are hearing the Barriers for Breakfast podcast and live cast for the first time is we really try to have conversations where we can give you something tangible. And we're going to kind of, as we kind of think about the wind down on our time together, kind of put together two questions here that I really want folks to see us kind of wrestle with, and make sure that they can take something tangible away. So we were joking at the beginning of this podcast about JB supervising me, and I don't know that I've ever told him this story to his face, but here goes, listeners, and I'll brag on him, but also hopefully give you something that we're talking about and create an initiative in people that eat Barriers for breakfast or take them. What I learned about JB very early was that I had a standing meeting and I could bring in, 5 things that I wanted to do and test those things. And what typically happened was 2 of them were slam dunks and they were easy for JB to say yes to. A couple of them were a little bit thorny and we had to collaborate and work through. And then one of them was absolutely not, but I'm going to tell you why. And it's not well timed. And, this is the deal. And I so appreciated that because I had the audience, but at the same time, you recognize that there were pieces that had different levels of impact or things that fed me or nurtured me. And what I see a lot in the workforce is folks that they're waiting for task behavior. They're waiting to be told kind of what to do. And this goes back to our earlier conversations that listeners can go back and rewatch around, we want critical thinkers. We want people who show initiative, but it's still so hard to draw that out, to bring that forward. So if we pivot our conversation to the student, the learner, the first-time job worker, what counsel would you give on initiative and kind of taking those steps to move things forward and just keep momentum as you're trying to tackle these things in a new world?
Well, I think if we're talking about, first-time job and folks when I think about what I didn't understand early, that I understand much more now, is how much people with whom you work or for whom you work are willing to give you feedback. But sometimes you need to ask for it because either they're uncomfortable providing that feedback or there hasn't been a structure set up really to do that in an effective way. And asking for feedback, putting ideas on the table, getting counsel on where you ought to think about strategically putting your time, depending on the kind of work you do, but also just being open about your willingness to learn is really important. And I think from a leadership level, if your folks don't know that the ideal state for you as a leader is that you're running hard to keep up with your colleagues, and you're trying constantly to figure out how you support their leadership and innovation, it's really easy to pull the reins on someone. It's much harder to stick the spurs in all the time and give them what they need to do to move forward. It's much easier to say, okay, hold on. Let me understand where you're going here. What resources do we really need? And I can help improve the direction you're taking. But half the time, you're going to know the direction that we need to take much better than I do within your sphere of influence or across a team. And similarly, when you work with teams, if that team doesn't show up ready to disagree, debate, amplify, whatever, your leadership is never going to be half. And I think that understanding, even if you're not at a leadership level in an organization, what it means for you to be raising issues, asking for perspective, because it actually informs your supervisor, or you're giving your supervisor permission to help you get better. And people are really willing to do that. I just always figured I was supposed to be achieving stuff and they would kind of check that box and I would look good, versus, hey, help me get better, and their investment in doing that.
No, it's great feedback.